I'm reading today from the book of Proverbs, the 6th chapter, beginning with the 6th verse. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler. Yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest. The writer of Proverbs tells his readers to look at the ant. And it's a lesson that not only we find in the Bible, we find actually even in Aesop. He has the fable of the grasshopper and the ant, and the ant spends all summer long gathering food, storing it up for the winter, and the grasshopper spends all summer long having a good time. And when winter comes, the ant colony survives and the grasshoppers die. It's the way of ants. They gather food and they store it up. It's something we're used to as farmers. We plant, we harvest, we store some of the grain for the next year. It's about planning for the future. Now, the ant only plans year to year, season to season. And we farm year to year, season to season. And for many of us, that seems like a long time. A year from now, that's a long time away. It's funny how when you look back, a year ago wasn't that long ago, but a year from now is a long time away. But sometimes we're called to prepare for more than a season or a year. Now, throughout the world of the Mediterranean, throughout the time of the Bible especially, the olive tree was a symbol of peace. And there's a reason for this. First, olives were very important to that region, especially at that time. And it wasn't for food. I mean, yeah, they would put olives in some of their dishes and, salads. Nowadays, sometimes people put them on their pizzas, but olives weren't meant as a food product. Instead, olives were produced for their oil. And olive oil for the Mediterranean world was extremely important. It was used in lamps to light your homes. It was used for cooking. It was even used for cleaning. You're thinking, how do you clean with oil? That doesn't make sense to us. But look at the ingredients in your shampoo. There's fat or oil in your shampoo. And especially in a desert culture. And we find this in the Bible where it says something is blessed like oil being poured over someone's head. And we're thinking, that doesn't sound too blessed to us, does it? To have oil poured on the head. But they would pour oil on the head and the dirt would stick to it. And then they would scrape the oil off. And the dirt would come off with it. And in a culture where water is often too precious to be used for bathing, it's very important that you have some other way to get the dirt off. So oil's very important. But by the same token, olive trees, which produce the oil, are very fragile. And olive trees also take at least 20 years from the time you plant them before they begin to produce a crop. Now, I can't imagine a farmer planting something and saying, well, in 20 years I'll be harvesting this field. Now, one, you need a lot bigger farms because you'd be rotating so that you could harvest something every year, but olive trees take 20 years. You don't plant an olive tree for yourself. You plant an olive tree for your children. It's not it's not work you do to plant and tend that tree and that you get a reward from. It's something you do that your next generation gets a reward from. Now, our ancestors in this church worked like ants, and they worked like olive tree planters. They planted things not just for a season, but for a generation. This church has been here almost 130 years. Actually, over 130 years. They didn't prepare for the next year. They built this church to last. And they built this church that it could go through seasons of plenty and seasons where there wasn't so much. Now, for those who were at the business meeting last Sunday, who stayed for it, we had a report about our CDs. And there's wonderful news there. Thanks to the stewardship of those who were here in the past in this church, our financial picture overall looks pretty good. You know, we sometimes get focused on our checking account and how much money is in the checking account and is it going up or down? And are our weekly offerings matching our monthly expenses? And it can get pretty depressing at times when you look at that and for a few months in a row they seem to go down. But we have a bigger picture we can look at. The people who came before us in this church didn't just store up for the next season. They stored up for the next generation. They stored up for us. Their stewardship produced security for us. And that's a wonderful thing. Now, it should make us think. Have you ever dreamed about winning the lottery? I'm not asking if you play the lottery, but have you ever just thought, what would I do if I had the money from a lottery jackpot? What would I do if money was no object? Because a lot of times we're the opposite way. We think, oh, I'd really love to do that, but I can't afford it. And we think that as a church too. Oh, we would really love to be involved in such and such ministry, but we can't afford it. We would really love to do that, or to do something about that problem that's facing our community, but we don't have the resources for it. Maybe we do. Maybe we have the resources. I can't think of anything that God might call this church to do that we don't have the resources to do. Now, I have been able to say that about every church I've pastored. Because of the stewardship of those who came before you, and maybe because of the stewardship of some of you in the past, we have a freedom that not every church has. If we feel God is calling us to do something, money will not be an obstacle. Now, I'm not saying we need to take the money out of the bank and spend it right away. First, I have no idea what God wants us to spend it on, so why do that? But I am saying that allow your thinking and your praying to not worry about money when it comes to the future of this church. I'm thinking that when you pray and say, God, what do you want this church to do, and how do you want this church to be involved in the community, you can scratch money off of the list of the things you have to worry about. Doesn't mean it's going to come easy. Doesn't mean there's not going to be work, but it means it's like in the movie Forrest Gump, when after he had invested in Apple, and he gets a letter from his financial advisor saying not to worry about money anymore, and he said, well, good, that's one less thing. You know, that's one less thing we have to worry about as a church. Think boldly. Allow God to give you big visions. And when he gives you the vision, don't think of, oh, I wish we could do that, but we can't afford it. Maybe we can. Yes, it's good to have that money in the bank, and it's good to say we can use that money to get through lean times. But maybe God's calling us to do more with the money than that. I don't know. I can't know. But you can. So when you pray for this church, and when you pray for the future of this church, don't let financial fears for the future of this church get in the way of your vision. Don't let that distract you from God's leading. Those who came before you were faithful stewards. Those who came before you have given you a legacy of financial security. I'll admit, I was rather surprised last Sunday when I heard the report on our CDs. But I was also pleased. But I believe God gave us this gift through the stewardship of those who came before us for a purpose. There's something he wants us to do, which some of that money will go for, which that money will allow us to do. There's a ministry, there's a mission that he wants us to be involved in. which we can do now because of the stewardship of those who came before us. They stored up not for a season, not for a year, but for a generation. They provided this legacy, this gift for us. My challenge to you is to pray and ask God how we are to use it.